Welcome back to Reactcast Season 3, Episode 1. What's up, Turtles? Because you're joined today.
What's up, Peter?
Are you excited for Episode 1?
Chris?
Are you excited for Episode 1 of the brand new season? Edit it.
I am.
Alright, so we're going to be reacting to Little Nightmares since the new one has been released, so this is going to be an exciting start, isn't it?
Yeah.
Alright, let's go on the video.
Well, it's a combination of multiple things. Considering these two are horror puzzle games, those two elements are usually the most important. So for each monster I'll take the scariness factor into consideration, as well as how well done the puzzles are, if there are any. But I'll also take into account other things like atmosphere, story, AI, and the visuals. All those things matter to me in these two games.
Did you see those
So the
big
ranking
guys?
is going to be extremely subjective. Don't
Okay.
expect to agree with every placement here. Anyway,
Would you walk
let's
across
begin
that
with
bridge?
Number 18. Number 18 is
No, I would
obviously
not.
the leeches.
Oh.
There's not a whole lot to say about them because they're wholly uninteresting. I mean, they're fucking leeches. What do you want me to say?
Whoa!
I guess they're okay as a warm-up for the horrors you face later in the game, since they mostly appear in the first chapter of the first game. But are they scary? Not really.
Oh, this guy.
Do they add to the atmosphere? Not much.
No, not really,
Are
bro.
they visually cool
As he
in their
said.
design? Well, they're just floppy black worms, so
Whoa.
no. Do they add anything to the story? Nah. Do they have any good puzzles associated with them? Barely. The only one that stood out was the one room in the first DLC with a leech and a key in a vase that you had to break. Not that it was anything special, you just had to get the leech as far away from the key as possible and then run back for the key and drag it to the lock before the leech could reach you.
Oh.
But besides that, all you really do with the leeches is run away from them. They're not awful enemies, but like they're fucking leeches. That's all I have to say. Number 17 is the shoe monster lurking in the
Whoa.
shoe room. In this section, you have to jump into the shoe pile and crawl towards a safe
Yeah,
spot
stop
before the
saying
shoe
bad
monster
words.
reaches you. But really,
Yeah.
the scariest thing about this monster is that it reminded me of the shoe piles of Auschwitz. Looking at that just makes me uneasy.
Whoa!
Whereas this thing is not very noteworthy.
Whoa.
It's only there for a brief moment, and you never
He's a
actually
bit-
see what it is.
This guy's a
Which
bit
does,
on
in a
edge,
way,
bro.
make it scarier because
Magic
you don't
Cat,
understand
shout
what you're
out.
dealing with.
Appreciate it.
You
and
always
that's the
feel-
video. Shout out.
But you don't understand.
Yeah, this point's been done to death, but it is true. But I do wish you could at least see a hand or a claw or a dick, but you don't
Whoa!
even get that. It doesn't even have a character model.
No!
You might
The
have
only
me.
indication of it existing is that it pushes shoes out of its way as it's moving towards you.
Bro!
But at least it's somewhat unnerving to go through here
I
because
just-
of how slowly you move, while the monster has no issues doing it. And I like the placement
What a
of the room,
sketchy
how you
start
stumble on
to
it just
Reactcast
after you
season
escape
3.
from the janitor and think you're safe, but you're not. Number 16 is the flesh walls. I didn't really consider these to be enemies myself, but the wiki does, so I guess I should. So at the very end of the game, the walls inside this massive tower are revealed to be just eyeballs and flesh.
Whoa!
And they don't take kindly to your presence
Sorry.
and give you a brief but very
Do you see
unforgiving
them?
chase. It's not helped by how unstable the ground is. I found it hard to tell what was safe to jump on and what wasn't, but still, I
Is number
appreciate
one
the
the
flesh
future?
walls for how nasty they look.
Or the
It looks like
criminal?
living
Yeah.
diarrhea. What the fuck did you eat? But one
Oh.
of my favorite visuals
What
was
the-
the scene at the end of the game when Mono is left behind in what looks like the belly of a giant beast, with eyes staring down at you from everywhere. And it kind of pays off all those eye symbols all over the first and the second game. I mean, I don't really know much about the story in this game, and I'm not fully sure what the eyes mean, but I think it's a good thing that they've gotten people to talk and speculate about it. Or maybe it's just my Bloodborne bias, since Bloodborne is literally just eyeballs.
Eyes.
Yeah, I bet you're not very fond of this part of the game.
I'm
The hand
not.
spiders are minor enemies, kind of like the leeches. But
I hate
unlike those
spiders.
little slugs, these things do their job of being creepy pretty well. When you enter the hospital and see countless bodies, you know they're going to wake up. But what I didn't expect was for their hands to detach themselves from the rest of the bodies to start crawling around on the floor and chase me. I don't know
Oh,
why I
God.
did. This is
Weird.
Little Nightmares after all. But at first all you can do is try to run away from them, which led me to the uncomfortable realization that these fuckers can climb. But
Whoa!
eventually you find yourself a hammer, which is
Whoa.
when you get to fight back. The combat isn't anything too exciting, you only have a
Right.
single attack to
Uh,
use.
yeah.
But this is a puzzle game, so I'm not too shocked. And it does still feel pretty satisfying to crush them, especially with those juicy sound effects.
Whoa!
The hands do complicate things by being quick and prone to jumping back to dodge your attacks. But after a while I found it easy to just walk sideways to avoid their attacks and then smack them while they're recovering. There isn't really too much to the hands. I think they're pretty good, but I can't bring myself to rank them higher than some of the more memorable monsters that are yet to come. Number 14 is the Shadow
Oh.
Kids. I like how they're introduced by at first only being seen in the background, stalking you. But eventually they get aggressive, and the only way of defending yourself is by shining a flashlight on them. However, later
Is
on
that
when you
Scary
have to find a
Turtles?
way through closed doors, they will keep respawning
Yeah,
non-stop.
like an
Usually I don't like
underground
respawning
thing.
enemies, but
What?
it works for this section.
Minecraft.
Especially the room in which you have to spin this thing open,
Minecraft?
where you're going to need to step away from
Yeah,
it
it's like an
to the
Enderman
kids
from
before
Minecraft.
continuing
Oh
to spin
yeah.
it.
Or
And
like the
you
guy
need
from
to be
5
quick
Nights
or
at
it'll
Freddy's.
just
Remember that
reset
guy?
and you'll never escape. It's
Yeah,
intense, and I like that. The Shadow Kids mainly test your ability to multitask. There's often more than one of them attacking you at once, all while you have to find a way to open a door. I don't have too much to say about them though. They're not really the most memorable enemies you encounter, but I think the flashlight...
What's that?
flashlight
Oh,
mechanic
whoa,
works well enough
whoa,
with them.
whoa.
God damn it.
What
Number
is that?
13 is the Hunter. This is the first big boss on this list, and is definitely the worst one, in my opinion. He's the first monster you encounter in Little Nightmares 2, which explains
That looks like
why he's one of
Boglo,
the
like he
easier
can't
ones
show
to
his
escape
face, you know what I
from.
mean?
Still, considering he's a hunter, I would have expected him to be a little bit more effective at capturing you, but he just isn't very
Boglo's a
consistent.
bit confused.
I'm kind of retarded.
He very easily forgets about your whereabouts after spotting you, if you just hide for a short moment. But he does bring something
That's
unique to the table,
Boglo.
since he's the
That's
only Little Nightmares
Boglo.
enemy to wield a gun, which means he can catch you from a long distance, and the only way to avoid getting shot is to hide behind something. At first he'll chase you and you need to get behind cover every time he fires, and then continue running while he's reloading, which establishes that he can't shoot twice in a row. He needs to reload, which takes a little bit. Keep this in mind.
Yeah.
There's also a stealth section where you have to hide in the grass, and the game developers sadistically placed a crow right in your path, so that if you want to proceed you'll have to scare it off, which of course will alert the hunter. It was
That's
probably
real
the
funny.
scariest part with him.
That's
Unless we
Boglo,
count the
bro.
part where Six pushed me into the danger zone. It's happened every time. I fucking hate this little bitch. But
Whoa!
There's another chase where you have to climb up into
Wrong.
This is where I have a
A
big
sketchy
issue with the
start,
hunter.
bro.
Like established before, he needs to reload before shooting again.
This video
Here he
is
just
like,
ditches. This part kinda reminded me of something from Spirited Away. I guess the look of a Japanese restaurant and the masks and the guests resembling the pigs from that movie did it. So again, nothing too crazy in terms of gameplay, but the guests definitely hosted one of the coolest sections of the game. Number 5 is 6.
Oh.
Well, that sounds dumb. With the Thin Man defeated by this point, I thought the game was about to end. Instead, we got a pretty neat level that was capped off with our friend Six having turned into a monster,
Six!
as if she wasn't already.
not Dexter.
It was definitely a creepy sight when the
Poor
camera pans
Six.
to reveal her just chilling next to me with her music box. I like that the call over button finally comes back into play, which you use to distract her, so you can grab a hammer and try to destroy the music box. Which she doesn't appreciate, and that's fair enough. It is a nice tune. But she chases you for a bit until you find an axe, so you can resume destroying the music box. And this is when you get to the final boss. Now, Little Nightmares isn't really the game for boss fights. You have her and 2 or 3 others that I could consider bosses, and none of them are all that great. But I think she's the best one out of them. You have these 2 pink doors which kinda work like portals. You enter one of them and exit out of the other, even if they're not physically connected. In order to get Six away from the music box, you need to use the call over button again. Then she'll charge at your location, so you should use one of the doors to get to the other side, then quickly get over to her music box while she's distracted. After hitting it, you start tripping until you find an axe again, after which the second phase starts. Same principle here, except you have to utilize more doors than last time. And for the final phase, it gets tricky when you start out with the axe being out of reach. I like that she too can use the portal doors with her arms and I'm relieved they made this work more like a puzzle than an actual fight, because we know that's not the game's strong suit. I also find it really funny looking when she slaps you into oblivion. So yeah, I enjoyed this. It's visually appealing and a good finale for the game. Number 4 is the lanky-armed janitor.
Oh!
He's definitely the monster with the
Now
most
that
screen
is
time and
Boglo.
appearances in the series. He appears in a total of 4 chapters,
No, Boglo's
so
shorter.
by the end of the game
Boglo's
he had
shorter.
become a very familiar face. I think it went a bit overboard with how many times he reappeared. I would rather have had a new monster in the second DLC. Instead, we get him again. However, he does manage to remain scary in this chapter, especially when he appears in the pitch dark room and freely roams around it. He does always seem to be walking towards your direction though, which is like, fuck off. And there's some cruel placements for little pieces of coal that will cause too much noise if you step on them. The one thing I didn't really like here was that it was sometimes impossible to see myself because of the camera angle, but the janitor is in general used for some pretty neat puzzles. He's completely blind and can only detect you by sound, which, sure, is a very commonly used gimmick for monsters in horror games. But I like that it makes the janitor stand out, and they made some clever sound-based puzzles with him. Walking on wooden floor is suicide since it creaks and alerts him, so you always have to try to figure out a safe route using other means, like climbing or walking on linen. You can distract him by turning on a TV or a machine, or by throwing something to lead him away. And when you're forced to do an action that causes lots of noise, it's extra stressful. The one in the library is probably my favorite encounter with him, where you have to climb up and walk across the shelves, and there's some shit in your way, which you can either carefully place elsewhere, or throw away, which will confuse the janitor. I prefer doing that just to fuck with him. I also like his massive spaghetti arms, which make him a far more effective monster than, say, the chefs who are just slow and clumsy. With these arms he can catch you from a really long distance, and they're used for some great scares as well. And they're also used for a boss fight. And it's You have to pull at this grate until it breaks, resulting in the janitor's arms being cut off by the door.
Whoa!
But you'll have to pull at it multiple times too, except instead of overly long arms, she has a stretchy penis neck. She also has a really disturbing face, this smug smile that never goes away.
After
Like the
meeting
janitor,
just like
she
that,
appears quite a
you
few
should go to the
times,
hospital.
though only in one chapter this time, and has some good puzzles
You
associated
didn't hear
with
what
her.
he said,
Her best
no.
puzzle
You
is
think he-
definitely the one in the piano room.
Sorry?
It's kinda
You didn't
eerie
hear what
seeing
he
a big
said a
scary
bit ago,
monster
no?
like her doing something a normal
No,
human would do.
Oh,
She's just
good.
playing the piano for her own amusement, and whenever she plays it, you can do your shenanigans behind her, like lowering the
mention
platform
Barry
so
Little
the
Nightmare.
insects can escape. But she always takes a short break from playing the piano every once in a while, which is when it gets completely quiet, and if you make any noise, she'll murder the shit out of you. So it's a nice scenario, and I like the atmosphere of the scene. Another thing I like about her is how, you know how the bullies are just horrible, noisy brats? Well, in her classroom, they're the complete opposite. Here they seem to be just scared of her and don't dare to make a sound. They're so focused on doing what the teacher tells them that they don't even notice you unless the teacher does. I almost feel bad for them. Until I'm reminded that they're annoying shits. Fuck you, Bruno. Like the janitor, she also gets to be creepy in a library. Here she utilizes her terrible neck when she looks for you behind these weird book pillars. It was the most clenched that I've been in either of these two games, and I can't believe I got away with it. I guess she really is like the janitor. Fucking blind. But by far the most disturbing part about her is when you try to escape the piano room. Vents have for a long time been a safe zone, but not with her. She forces her dickhead in there, and the lighting especially makes it look terrifying. Even though it's a straightforward chase, it's one of the scariest ones for me. And there's something about the final shot of the snake-like thing looking around in the rain that stuck with me. I don't like it. So the teacher is a horrible, frightening, and thoroughly memorable monster,
Number
and I
two,
love and hate
the
her.
magic mirror.
At number 2, we
Yeah.
have the lady. If you've only played the main
Number
game
one,
of
the
Little
film
Nightmare before, but regardless, for having so little screen time, she did a great job making a lasting impression. The atmosphere is immediately set when you enter her quarters as 6, where you hear her humming to herself while looking at a broken mirror. All the mirrors in her area are broken, except for one, but we'll get to that soon. Sneaking past her on this wooden floor that has been established to be prone to creaking made me very nervous, but thankfully she won't notice you unless you run or get too close. Then you have to crack open a pot to get the key from it, but you know that will get her attention. But instead of her coming to the room to inspect, it all just goes quiet. And that's even worse. It's
Isn't
being
it
completely
turtles?
silent and you anticipating an attack. It's just pain. Then she does attack
thought
and
the
it
audio
scared the
for that-
bitch out of me. The chase is brief and ends with
Doesn't
you
it look-
finding the
is that
one
scary?
intact mirror. As you could guess, you can turn this one
Whatever.
against her. You get a
That's so
pretty
scary.
mediocre but serviceable
Who
boss
do you
fight
think
with
that
her.
is?
I really don't have much to say about it, so let's move
What
on to
is
what
it?
I love the most about her. The mannequins. It's both amazing and evil how many mannequins they placed all over the area. The intention is clear. They want you to be unsure if you're looking at a mannequin or the lady. And it works. I was often startled by what turned out to be just a mannequin wearing similar clothes as her. The lady really shines in the DLC as a scary being. Instead of humming to herself, this time she has a music box. And unlike the humming, I found this tune to be kinda calming, especially because I could always hear where she was, and she didn't move around the place. At first anyway. After you've made enough progress, it all goes back to being silent as the grave. And it's again, terrifying. You as the runaway kid also get to see her inner beauty, before being chased by her. The way she floats behind the mannequins is just horrible, but in a good way. And adding to her scariness factor, you as the runaway kid don't get to escape from her clutches. And this is when we find out where all the cute little gnomes in this
Whoa.
game come from. From her. And it's especially sad knowing what happens to him in the end. She's overall the
God.
scariest monster in Little Nightmares 1 for me, and this disturbing revelation just adds to it. Number 1 is
Yep,
the Thin Man,
the Thin
since
Man
the name
Turtles.
Slenderman was already taken. All the sequences with this guy are really cool, thanks to the visuals and the sound design. He makes a hell of an entrance by appearing through a TV. I love how whenever he appears, he just ear rapes you simply by being near you. It's pretty on the rails. Get it? Because you're in a train. Alright, I'll go die.
Oh my
The most
God.
intense bits
Whoa,
with him
don't
are
do that,
when he had to
please!
break job. But he does have a boss fight at the end of the chapter, where you have to high-five him to death. While gameplay-wise it's obviously nothing amazing, I like that it mirrors how you attuned the TVs multiple times before in the game. The music and the visuals are also top-notch here. I especially love how the buildings contort over the course of the struggle. But mostly I love the Thin Man for the story, actually. When you first encounter him, you see him as just another evil monster. But at the very end of the game, Mono is left behind
my
by
God.
Six to rot inside the tower.
No!
I don't know why she did it. It's not like I ever wronged her or anything. Then we see a time-lapse of Mono sitting alone, trapped in the tower, where he eventually turns into the Thin Man. The very same one that you as Mono killed before. He's actually stuck in an endless loop, trying to prevent the cruel fate from happening, only to die by his younger self's hand. That's the very simple version of his story, and since this game is an obscure mindfuck, I can't really know much more with certainty. So the Thin Man is a very tragic character, and I wasn't expecting to feel sad for a scary monster like him. So he makes up for his minimal screen time in the game by having the longest lasting impact, and that's why he's the best monster in Little Nightmares for me. One last thing though, the foreshadowing about the Thin Man and Mono being the same on the front cover of the game. That's fucking clever. And there we go. That's every monster in Little Nightmares right.
Was it?
Yeah.
It's, alright, Turtles, I appreciate you here for being here for episode 1. Will you be back for episode 2, question mark?
I don't know, DJ. You have to find out in the next one, guys.
Oh, you're leaving us with a cliffhanger. You're leaving us with a cliffhanger.
Yes, we are.
Alright, the next episode's in 2 weeks. What do you think? But this is edited now. What do you think of that?
Banging, bro.
Well, I appreciate you, Turtles. That guy, everybody, go and subscribe, guys. Even though he has some curse words, it's actually well edited and all. What do you think? Really well executed.
Very well done. Very well done.
Even though Bondo edited it, but yeah. So,
Nah. Really bad.
alright, thank you so much for watching Reactcast Season 3 Episode 1, and thank you, Turtles, for being here.